This week in the business of tech, SaaS software costs to increase up to 20% by 2025, says Gartner. Despite layoffs, tech salaries continue to climb. Is Zoom building an email service? Apple and Microsoft are changing patching, and maybe quiet quitting is really act your wage. All these stories and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification button and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. Another Gartner prediction, and this one is a doozy. According to Gartner projections, the combined effect of inflation, competitive labor markets, and environmental sustainability requirements will lead to 15% to 20% higher SaaS costs by 2025. Quote, although there may be some justification for pricing uplifts due to increased expenses or currency fluctuations, some IT vendors may be opportunistically looking to grow profitability, Hannah Decker, principal analyst and one of the report's authors, said in an email to CIO Dive. From the same article, software spending will rise at a compounded annual growth rate of 10.3% through this year, according to a Forrester report. Why do we care? A 20% increase in 3 years to SaaS isn't necessarily something that most businesses budgeted for. I'm not saying it's unreasonable, although it might be. I'm just noting that when customers sign up for service, they generally anticipate a lot less of an increase. I'm often dismissive of cloud cost control products, and perhaps I need to rethink my stance. To be sure, planning for this now is essential. If it can outpace the cost of increased revenue, however, the problem does go away. Let's dive into a new IT Leaders Pulse Report 2022 by MuleSoft Research. This surveys over 1,000 IT leaders worldwide working in enterprise organizations. The report has 20 key findings. I'm going to focus on 5, quoting ZDNet. Employee well-being is now an investment priority. Over the next 12 months, the majority of respondents plan to invest in improving IT employee well-being ahead of upskilling and increasing team headcount. This includes providing enhanced remote and flexible working capabilities. Improved collaborative processes needed between IT and business teams. IT is no longer just a technology enabler. It now solves business-critical problems, tackles major business objectives, and helps develop competitive advantages with technology. IT is leaning into existing investments rather than buying new technology. Most IT leaders at 72% prefer to update or upgrade existing solutions wherever possible rather than replacing them. The role of senior IT leaders has evolved beyond technology acumen. In a post-pandemic world, senior IT leaders require a skill set that is much broader than technology expertise. The report found that 84% of IT leaders noted the need for developing non-IT skills to add strategic value to their businesses. And IT now measured by productivity, cost reduction, and experiences. Roughly half of all senior IT leaders are now evaluated on employee productivity at 52%, cost reduction and optimization 50%, and customer and employee experience. This varies between industries. For example, 62% of senior IT leaders are measured on employee productivity for financial services and insurance. Why do we care? Borrowing enterprise data and adapting it to the needs of SMB is a staple of this show, and the ideas here aren't going to be revolutionary. They're likely just harder for small companies. I'm increasingly convinced that the consultancy model is, or will, swinging around in popularity among the most successful providers in the industry. This list is the same that any business owner will be asking for, and your gold, silver, bronze, plastic tiered offerings don't address these needs. That's amplified if customer services are out of the cloud. That's why we care. Focusing here. I noted this article and wanted to follow up as it was a topic previously: vaccine mandates. Axios with an article entitled "Companies are Dropping Vaccine Mandates." It's a bit more nuanced than that. With hiring more difficult and employers seemingly desperate to get employees in the office, some are trying to remove any barrier to entry. Goldman Sachs lifted their vaccination requirements everywhere but New York City, and Cisco stopped requiring vaccination back in June. Google, Edelman, and Facebook do still require vaccination, and Microsoft declined to comment. Why do we care? The headline feels disconnected from the content. I'll note that the White House messaging here isn't pushing mandates, leaving this entirely to businesses to decide. That's the reality. The decision on how to proceed will be highly localized. I've cited data recently that one of the reasons for staffing shortages is still COVID. Let's not ignore that reality. I think mandates alone are not advisable for small businesses. Instead, focus on a flexible policy for illness and make it broad and trusting. No one wants to spread any sickness in the office, so build an environment supportive of that. A planning guide from Forrester for 2023, Security and Risk. Pulling from Computer Weekly, here are the recommendations for CISOs. API security is increasingly the de facto approach to modern development, enabling organizations to build new business models and engagement methods, but prone to breaches due to unprotected APIs and API endpoints. Bot management, actively profiling incoming traffic to determine intent and protect from malicious bots, which comprised 25.6% of internet traffic in 2020 by delaying, misdirecting, or blocking them. Industrial control system and operational technology threat intelligence, which is becoming a non-negotiable buy for organizations working in sectors such as energy, manufacturing, utilities, or transport. Cloud workload, container, and serverless security to protect the compute, storage, and network configurations of cloud workloads in infrastructure and platform-as-a-service environments. This market is still immature and a challenge to address. Multi-factor authentication, or even passwordless authentication, is one of the quickest and cheapest ways to align security strategies around zero-trust principles. Zero Trust Network Access is a more appropriate and agile solution to secure remote workers in a post-pandemic world than the traditional VPN. Security analytics platforms replace legacy rules-based security information and event management offerings that are too easily overwhelmed by the rapidly evolving threat landscape, and crisis simulations and purple teaming. Why do we care? It's a very good list. It will require some adaptation for different sized businesses, of course. API security is a great example, as that's for organizations who develop software, and most don't. I wanted to highlight protect the compute, storage, and network configurations of cloud workloads. This is not something most small providers are addressing effectively, as this is configuration management rather than device management. That's a key distinction, and that's why I wanted to highlight it. Big opportunity for sure, and why I like the space, but they do note it's immature. My guidance is to focus on changing your methodology and thinking first rather than searching for a tool. You'll build your requirements list that way. 3 Microsoft stories I wanted to note. First, starting October 1st, Microsoft is removing the option to pay by check in the US and Canada, requiring payment by wire transfer or ACH. Second, the same story from the Register notes price drops on some products, including the Microsoft 365 bundle. Finally, they're offering a discount through next year for upgrades to Microsoft 365, a 16.7% discount valid through June 30th. Why do we care? Besides the blocking and tackling of pricing, I was more drawn to the fact that Microsoft won't be accepting checks. This is both a luxury and requirement for larger companies. At that size and scale, the manual costs of processing checks are measurable. For small businesses, I still recommend making it as easy and flexible to pay as possible. You can send me a check by carrier pigeon if it ends up being easiest for you, customer, but that processing doesn't work at scale. That said, that pain comes much faster with frequency, so measure accordingly. But for Microsoft, that's one they won't pay anymore. New salary data from job placement site Hired. Despite layoffs and hiring freezes, salaries continue to climb. Quoting Axios, salary offers for candidates in the San Francisco Bay Area remain the nation's highest at an average of $174,063, followed by Seattle and New York. However, salaries in mid-sized markets are catching up with the larger tech markets. The highest paid growth rates were in Philadelphia, up 12%, Dallas-Fort Worth, up 11%, and Denver, up 11%. And in 15 out of 17 markets, the salaries for remote workers actually outpace those for workers hired locally. Bit more detail there, remote roles paying $3,000 more on average globally in 2022. Average remote salaries climbed to $162,950 this year, ranking third highest overall in the report after San Francisco and New York. And surveyed tech candidates' most compelling benefits from 2021 to 2022 remain the same: flexible work, paid time off, and health insurance benefits. But this year, candidates are willing to trade a higher salary for practical benefits, health insurance, and 401k retirement matching versus stock equity in 2021, according to the report. That remote working benefit is a competitive edge. Candidates showed an increasing preference for remote-only roles, with 32% of all active job seekers open to only remote roles on the hired platform as of June 2022, up from 18% in January 2022. Why do we care? No matter the noise around hiring, the market is tight and challenging. I often quip that if providers spent as much time on their labor and employee management as they did on tools, they would be dramatically more successful. With labor the top expense line item for IT services companies, managing this is vital. There's a leveling going on here, and to the detriment of rural and smaller market employers. Working remotely is the third best salary group, which should worry small market employers if they aren't compensating. Cheaper in the smaller market is going away. A couple of items I noticed on the legislative front. First, Protocol reporting on the FTC's movement on health data. It's much faster than their typical speed. The FTC is suing data broker Kochava for allegedly selling location data that could track movements to domestic violence centers, reproductive health clinics, and other sensitive places. The FTC had already been looking into the company, and compared to previous cases against Meta and Walmart, the speed of filing is months instead of years. Health data seems quite topical, with Protocol doing a different piece about big tech and health data, and finding the limits of HIPAA. With all the interest from big tech in healthcare, it may be problematic. More than 67% of patients in the US said they weren't comfortable with big technology companies having access to their private medical information, according to a 2022 survey from the American Medical Association. Patients were much more likely to trust their doctor's office or a hospital health system with that data. Anti-hacking copyright law is being fought in court this week, with oral arguments in a case of security researchers pushing back against restrictions on hacking digital security measures from the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. Matthew Green, a computer security researcher at Johns Hopkins, and Andrew Huang, an electrical engineer and hacker, sued the Justice Department and the U.S. Copyright Office in 2016. They argued that the circumvention ban contained in Section 1201 of the DMCA is an unconstitutional restriction on free speech. And all within the context of the White House outlining 6 principles for reforming big tech. Those ideals: promote competition in the technology sector, provide robust federal protections for Americans' privacy, protect our kids by putting in place even stronger privacy and online protections for them, including prioritizing safety by design standards and practices for online platforms, products, and services, remove special legal protections for large tech platforms, increase transparency about platforms' algorithms and content moderation decisions, and stop discriminatory algorithmic decision-making. I've linked to the White House statement in the article. There might be movement here too. The American Data Privacy and Protection Act, which I've mentioned before, is still considered in play. Why do we care? Data governance is the area to focus on. More than compliance, the idea is managing customers' data sets and ensuring deliberate choices rather than accidental errors. This movement is all an indication of maturity of the technology market. I view it as a positive development.
Did you know about Stir Shaken? If you're doing voice for your customers, you'd better. The deadline was June 30th. This technology is focused on reducing robocalls, and providers have to take action. Are you compliant? The team at OITVOIP has put together resources for you to learn more, or for their customers, it's already handled. Want to learn more? Visit oit.co/MSP Radio for resources to help make sure you're covered.
The new State of Service 2022 report from Salesforce with 4 key findings, quoting ZDNet. First, connection is the heart of service. Customers' expectation means service professionals need visibility into the entire customer journey in order to engage empathetically and efficiently. 62% of service pros say all departments use the same CRM software. Second, digital engagement becomes the norm. The pandemic sent an increasing number of customers to digital channels. As their expectations rise and habits change, they aren't turning back. Adoption of video support has increased by 47% since 2020. Third, customer service extends to the doorstep. The contact center remains critical, but physical on-site service is an increasingly important factor in delivering customer success. 86% of decision makers at organizations with field service say it's critical to scaling their business. Fourth, labor dynamics put focus on agent experience. As job mobility spiked over the past months and years, service organizations have a renewed focus on skill sets and perks, even as economic headwinds signal future challenges. Service organizations have experienced an averaged reported turnover rate of 19% over the past year. Let's pair that with CompTIA's recent posting on tech buying trends. Quoting the blog, 62% of respondents in CompTIA's latest research, SMB technology buying trends, say the use of technology today is a primary factor in reaching their strategic business goals. 31% deem tech a secondary factor in those critical efforts, with only 5% calling it a non-factor. 3 in 10 SMBs agreed their company was thriving thus far in 2022 by increasing revenue and profitability. That compares with 22% that said so last year. Most firms describe their health as holding steady in terms of revenue and profit levels, which is similar to last year, 51% in 2022 and 48% in 2021. The number that reports struggling this year, a net 19%, is down from 29% that said so last year. Why do we care? With technology at the heart of a modern business, it's also commonplace, and the differentiator is service delivery. I wanted to call out the adoption of video support and that call to connection. It would be straightforward to say customer service is about relationships or service, when the subtlety is it's actually about delivering results. Delivering customer success is code for drive their business, and the only way to do that is through measurement of impact. And note, business owner, you're doing it in a world of 19% turnover. News stories that aren't announced tend to be problematic, but the information has an interesting one. Quoting the piece, Zoom plans to debut its own email and calendar services, possibly as soon as its Zoomtopia conference for customers in November, according to a person with direct knowledge of the plans. The company has spent the better 2 years quietly developing the new services, which some employ names as Zmail and Zcal. Executives haven't unveiled the products to most staff. And further quoting, Zoom CEO Eric Yuan wants his company's forthcoming email and calendar services to be pillars of a productivity suite, especially for 200,000 businesses that pay for Zoom, most of which are small and medium size, a Zoom manager told the information. The question is, will customers want Zoom versions of products they already have? Microsoft and Google control 85% and 14% of the global market, respectively, for email and other productivity applications, according to research firm Gartner. Why do we care? If Zoom launches an email and calendar service, the key will be how it's priced and packaged. Assume it's included in the services offered for paid customers. Would that be disruptive? It highlights the recognition that the work layer is an area of critical competition. Zoom, Slack, Microsoft, Google, all battling it out for central positioning here. I'm not sure Zmail or Zcal would be successful, but I'm watching. 2 changes in the way patching is done, and thematically the same. Microsoft has rolled out Update Under Lock, which allows the revision of Office apps while a PC is in idle, lock mode, or if the apps are running. Microsoft promises the new method for updating Microsoft 365 apps will mean 0 notifications, 0 disruptions to users, and reduce the need for forced updates. Update Under Lock tries to shut down Office apps when it's safe to do so, and then applies a pending update. It then restores closed apps to their previous state. All this should happen in seconds, according to Microsoft. Apple has debuted Rapid Security Response in iOS 16, which allows for the background install of security updates automatically and now includes a way to remove them. Why do we care? Seamless background patching is the story, and I can hear the shrieks of so many providers over this. Savvy ones recognize that this is the wave of the future, with Microsoft's coming auto-patch features within the management toolsets and a trend to manage compliance of patch level as a norm. We're getting glimpses of the future already. In a new memo from the Office of Management and Budget on Wednesday, the Federal Acquisition Regulatory Council will soon propose a rule requiring federal agencies to use a uniform, standard self-attestation form when seeking assurances from software vendors that their products were developed using guidance from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. In addition to approving the use of self-attestation, the OMB memo allows agencies to accept what is essentially a promise from vendors that they will work towards being able to comply with the NIST guidance on a specific timeline. Why do we care? Self-attestation is the controversial portion of the guidance. Of course the rules would start here. That's how one gets something rolled out quickly. But project out. A vendor self-attests and is later proven not to have complied, and that's the evidence in the inevitable legal battle. Let's not be too dismissive of that, despite my desire for more. More importantly, this is the US government using its buying power. Small, critical step. An interesting trend from Gartner. Security leaders are increasingly cutting the number of vendors they buy products from. The market research firm said Tuesday that 75% of organizations it recently surveyed said they have a strategy of security vendor consolidation. By comparison, only 29% of those surveyed in 2022 said they were trimming the number of security companies they buy from. 57% of respondents said their organizations work with fewer than 10 vendors for security needs. Why the vendor consolidation? Because firms don't think they're getting the most out of their products. This from Channel Daily News. Why do we care? We have far too many security products out there, and if you're in the risk management business, and make no mistake, everyone is when it comes to security, more tools aren't the answer. Each tool also introduces complexity, which increases the attack surface, so there are diminishing returns. I've cited that security is a business tax. Well, you generally look to pay less for your taxes, and reducing the number of vendors is how you do that. Savvy providers will be careful about finding that Goldilocks spot, just the correct number of vendors, not too many, not too few, and they'll measure it based on risk reduction value. I couldn't resist following up on quiet quitting and job trends. Or perhaps it should be called workers acting their wage. Business Insider notes how workers are pushing back here, citing that it's just workers doing their job as written for the pay they receive. The other key message? It's about managers more than workers expecting overwork. There might be something there too. There are studies on the issue that place some of the blame on managers. Link in the article. This is still an issue. A newly released report from A.Team and Mass Challenge indicates that 44% of tech founders and executives report that a significant number of their top performers have left their company. More from A.Team, 9% of employers cited product and engineering roles as the most challenging positions to fill. In addition, 62% of respondents said it took them more than 4 months to find the right talent to fill those vacancies. To combat the significant loss of talented employees, 80% of surveyed executives said they would hire someone without a college degree to work at their company. Or how about this point? Half of IT spend over the next year will be devoted to people and process rather than technology, according to 1,000 senior IT leaders surveyed for a report released Wednesday by Salesforce's MuleSoft. Now, it's not all slanted to workers. Layoffs.fyi did research into more than 40,000 people who've been let go and found 4 kinds of workers that were the ones laid off: recent hires, high earners, millennials, and recruiters and coders. Why do we care? Reframing the action as acting your wage cuts through the noise. If employees do what they are paid to do, and that's listed in their job description, are they underperforming? No, they're performing. Talent should be the top priority of a service company. It's right there in the description. You can't provide service without talent.
Thanks for your time and attention. Time is a finite resource, and I really value you giving me some of yours. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSPradio. It's our give what you want model where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this podcast, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary show, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue button to subscribe. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all that, and I look forward to talking to you next time.